Well, I want to welcome everybody. You know, the last time I stood up here was in April doing the President's Address at the very beginning of the year. And holy cow, what a year it has been. Yeah, it's been a great year. So I want to welcome you all. I want to thank you for coming out. You know, we have a lot of information. Oh, can we turn the music off?
Just did.
Okay. We have a lot of great information, and I'm so pleased to see so many people that came out to look at what we have to present so that you can make an informed decision when voting opens, which will be first thing in the morning, I think.
28th.
28th? 28th. All right, I stand corrected. So, you know, when the board got together at the beginning of the year, we did an offsite, and one of the things that we talked about then was how do we get a better understanding of what members feel about the club, about our amenities, about their experience at the club. And so all the way back then, we talked about doing a survey. And we did one. And I want to thank all of you. Hopefully all of you are the ones that participated. We had a pretty good participation rate. And the survey really helps us do two things. It helps the board understand how we move the needle during the year. But almost more importantly, it helps the next board coming in to understand what our members feel about the different areas of the club and where we need to focus for next year so that we can do even better. So with that, let me go into a little bit of the results of the survey. And before I really get started, I want to point out John Schaefer. John is a gem and a real data analyst. And so he took all of the information that you all put into the survey out in a spreadsheet, and he sliced it and diced it and organized it, and he was able to make it meaningful for the board to digest it all and then to send to all the different committee chairs so that they can digest it as well. And so we're going to present you just some high-level findings, which I think you'll find pretty interesting. So 30% of full or lifetime members participated in the survey, 25% of sport members, and 19% of social members. We had a 50-50 split between men and women who completed the survey. And remember, we sent most of our voting, we send an email to both of the emails on an account, on a membership, but only one can vote. With this survey, we sent it to each email, and we asked everybody to vote so that we could get the perspective of more of our members. So 79% of our members indicated they were satisfied or very satisfied. And then if you add in those that said they were neutral, that brought us to 96%. So 96% of our members were not unsatisfied, which for our first time doing a survey, we thought that was pretty good. Half of our members that took the survey had been here 5 years or less. And you think, wow, that's a lot from the newer folks, but I fit into that category, and actually most of our new growth fits into the category of joining over the last 5 years. Next page. So let's talk about some themes. So there was 45 pages of notes that were submitted by folks that filled out the survey. And so what we were able to identify was really clear themes of both what we're doing well and where we need to continue to improve. So we're doing well, improving many areas of the club, and we're moving in the right direction, and that was a very consistent theme. That we have a friendly staff and friendly members, and it's a real social place to be. That was another pretty strong theme. I didn't think I'd be saying this at the beginning of the year, but the golf course condition and the agronomy team were something that was mentioned by a great many members as something that we're doing well.
Here.
Yeah. The tennis court condition, the chef, his team, the food, and the quality were areas that we were doing well. The golf and racket professionals and their respective lessons They all got really high ratings. So folks like our professionals and like the lessons, and that was great to hear, and the programming. And then the pool in general got high marks with the one exception, and it was a big exception, of the pool bathrooms. So where we need to improve, and this will really help us both tonight when Dan presents his information as well as next year, is the pickleball courts. That was probably the leading area of the club that needed improvement. Next were bunkers and tee boxes. And I will add, this is in no particular order. This is just a listing. We have inconsistencies still with the dining service. It seemed from members' comments to have improved over the year, but folks still say it needs improvement when it comes to consistency. Also an inconsistency of food temperature. And that goes back to we don't have all the equipment to keep everything warm. So you all noticed and say we need to do a better job of keeping food consistently warm when it's presented to the folks that have ordered it. The speed of service when dining, that was another thing that showed some improvement comments about over the year, but we still need to improve the speed from which the time to order to the time it's delivered to your table. Cleanliness across all facilities was noted by quite a few. And we, for all of our facilities, the golf shop, the racket shop, all of our facilities here, our fitness center, we have one person that cleans. So we need to improve our cleanliness. Same thing with updating the facility. We need to update the fitness center, and we need to keep the facility updated. And so the facility maintenance came across quite a bit as well. And again, we have one maintenance person that helps with every single facility we have, which is clearly not enough. We need to update equipment, and folks were very clear about this. And we need to update our fitness center equipment. We need to update the kitchen equipment. We need to update the equipment that is on the golf course. And lastly, in the tennis and pickleball area. And finally, the last area that was a kind of a big theme of what we need to do better was updating and improving our bathrooms, most especially the pool bathroom. But pretty much when you've updated the clubhouse and we still have antiquated bathrooms, they kind of stand out. So we heard you loud and clear. And what's interesting is this information is the same information that we've heard feedback throughout the year. And it's the same information that Dan's going to talk about that he heard from his finance committee as they went out to the different areas of the club to solicit information for the budget for next year. So with that, let me turn it over to Dan, and he's going to start going through the process he went through and the information about the 2024 budget.
All right, thanks, Jen, and it's great to see a lot of familiar, and at least at the beginning of my presentation, friendly faces, because I had the great task of trying to present a compelling case as to why you should vote to increase your dues. We think we have a very strong case around that, and it's really trying to move the club from good to great. Okay, clearly, the survey results show, as Jen mentioned, that members are generally satisfied. It's a good club. It's not a great club. There are issues, and quite frankly, there are issues that have been around for a while. And we'll talk about those and talk about a plan to get after those. First, before I get into it, let me give a quick assessment of our current environment. We have solid financials. We have an operating budget that generates approximately $500,000 to $700,000 a year in cash. In other words, our revenue is about $500,000 over our expenses. And that money is needed for our annual repair and replace needs. So we're generating operating cash that is there to pay for equipment when needs replaced, HVAC units when they break down, et cetera. So we are in a position of financial strength. This isn't a discussion around, hey, we need to increase dues because we're in financially troubled times. Secondly, we have limited capacity for additional debt. We have about $1.2 million mortgage. We have a roughly $1 million irrigation loan. We have a lot of capital leases, operating leases for various equipment. So if you look at our debt load and our financial ratios, we're sort of getting near tapped out currently around limited ability to take on additional debt. We've had significant membership growth from 16 to 23, basically doubling. We now are around 784 members. That was around 400 members back in 16. And I'm sorry, I've been fighting a cold, so my voice, just bear with me, please. We survived several difficult periods. 2016 to 18, for those of you that were there with the club 7 years ago, was all about financial solvency and growing members so that we could survive. Then, of course, in the last 3 to 4 years, COVID had a big impact. The course closure, huge impact. The need to put in a irrigation system, the new bar, new dining room, new banquet space, a lot of critical capital expenses and loans for the irrigation system that we did. We have an aging facility with significant capital needs. As you've heard in other meetings, Craig Miller on the board's done an outstanding job of really categorizing all of our assets within the club, when their useful life's expected to end, when we need to replace them, etc. And that is a significant expense. For those of you that have houses that are 20, 30, 40 years old, I'm sure you can identify with that as things constantly need repaired, replaced, etc. As we mentioned, members are generally satisfied, but not very satisfied. We'd like to present a plan to try to get to very satisfied. And there are clear service gaps that have been identified. Now, I just added this slide today as I thought about it because many of you, this will be quite familiar to some, it might be important to really just quickly understand when we talk about operating and capital within the club structure. We now have a separate bank operating account, a separate bank capital account. Our operating account includes the expenses, the budget, to officially operate the club at the desired service level. So obviously our payroll, utilities, food and beverage, cost of goods sold, principal and interest, all the things you expect to be in your operating expense to run the club. That's funded by dues, of course, our revenue from golf, which are card fees and guest fees, and food and beverage revenue, which, by the way, since the opening of the bar and banquet has just skyrocketed in a profitable way. So that's been good news. The capital account is used to fund our repair and replacement of the club's assets. Examples: the new irrigation system, HVAC unit replacement, the pickleball resurfacing that's beginning, I think, next week, right? And also used to fund projects that will significantly improve the member experience. So where does money come into the capital account from? How's that funded? One option is bank financing. I mentioned the current financing we have. Other is cash from ops. Within our bylaws, we're required to set a budget that will be able to move at least $204,000 a year, $17,000 a month, from operations to capital. We've been exceeding that, but the minimum required is $204,000. Initiation fees go into capital, lifetime memberships, and assessments. So for those of you that joined in June, I think it was, when we presented the plan to add more lifetime memberships, that was all about funding the capital account. And we successfully sold 9 of those and brought in a lot of funds to do a lot of the things that we just mentioned, and a lot for 2024. What I'm going to be focusing on tonight mostly is on the operating account side. Okay, what do we need to do from an operating budget standpoint to make sure that we can improve the member experience and move satisfaction to very satisfied. So as we attack the operating budget process this year, we divided into 7 or 8 different functional areas of the club: pool, fitness, greens and grounds, golf, rackets, etc. And we really put together groups. Many of you participate in those, so thank you, from the various committees to work with the finance committee to really identify this. Where are we falling short from a member experience standpoint? What are the challenges? Why are we falling short? What do we need to be able to deliver exceptional service? In order to do that, what's the recommended additions to the operating budget, and what's the recommended capital expenditures needed to improve service? To be honest, it was a bit of a different approach, I think, to attacking the budget. I was on the board back in 16, 17, and 18, and quite frankly, in those times, our approach to the budget was, where can we cut expenses? Because we have less, our expenses currently exceed our revenue until we get more members in here. And so, and I believe that we've tended to sort of operate in that mentality ever since then. How can we do things as cheap as we possibly can to save money? I'm saying that in a positive way, around, what can we do to to try to save money? And when we identify gaps, a lot of times it's, but we don't have the budget for that. So we wanted to take a step back this year and say, okay, what's it going to take? What would it cost? And then let's give members a choice on whether they want to continue the way we're going or spend a little more to get the improvements that are there. So that was the different approach. I'm really pleased with the work that was done there and what we saw, and it was very consistent with what came out of the survey. So, what were the identified member experience shortfalls? There were clear gaps to great service identified across all areas. Very specifically, needing to right-size the agronomy budget. I'll get into some detail shortly on some comps around what we spend in agronomy compared to other similar clubs. And that includes both staffing and equipment. Cleanliness across all facilities came up across the board. Need to update the fitness center and bathrooms, especially the pool bathroom. Now, is Sandy Ahern, did I see Sandy? The pool bathroom comment, I don't know if you guys know, but it appears that on Monday, a sequel to Snakes on a Plane was filmed here. It was called Snake in a Pool Bathroom, starring Sandy. Evidently, Sandy found herself in that bathroom without her phone, was ready to leave, and what's standing in the doorway hissing is about a 4-foot copperhead. I was actually surprised the snake wanted to go into that bathroom, to be honest, but that's a separate story. Now, luckily, without her phone, luckily, I guess the screams were heard, and SLS came to the rescue. That is Samuel L. Sheedy with a rake and took care of the menacing creature. But that had to be quite a harrowing experience. But the pool bathroom was poorly rated before that. Clearly need to update equipment, disrepair the pickleball courts, improve maintenance of the facilities, improve the golf product. I'm actually going to pull out my notes here so I don't mess this one up. Shirley Morgan has led, I think, some great work with the golf committee around defining what do we want the golf product to be. What's a acceptable golf product from a country club perspective? It would include things like new range balls every 4 months versus 6. We currently order them twice a year. After about month 4, they get quite ragged. A staff to welcome you, handle bags, clean clubs afterwards. A starter on the first tee during peak times. A water station on the practice range. A club cleaning stations on the chipping greens, as well as club racks to hold unlimited clubs, pro shop improvements, and clean carts. All of which I think we'd say, you know what, that sounds like a good golf product that we would want. So we clearly want to get towards that and need to improve that. And then finally, the inconsistency of the dining experience that Jen covered well. So, as many of you know, the board is authorized to increase dues up to and less than 5%. I think that's a great rule because I don't think the board should be unilaterally deciding on increases above that without members weighing in. So if we look at the inflation rate over the past year that all of us will be feeling personally, that rate September to September was 4%. Shown here is our currently monthly dues, full $525, sports $325, social $225. And what a 4.9% increase would equate to. $550, $340, $235. You know, that when I saw that at first, I thought, okay, that part generates a lot of money. Well, the reality is it generates $150,000 in additional dues revenue. So in other words, if we annually, I'm sorry, $150,000 annually. Roughly 5% of $3 million, which is our dues line item. So it generates $150,000 and I should put annual additional dues revenue. A 4% wage increase, which we'd argue, given the inflation rate, will basically keep our staff even. Costs the club $100,000. So basically, in this kind of inflationary environment, we would have $50,000 left to cover non-payroll operating expense increase. So all the other things are going up other than payroll, and attempt to do the improvements that we're talking about. So the reality is, if we go with a 4.9% dues increase, we will be attempting to keep things kind of right where they are. 150K in additional revenue, 100 out the door on wages, 50 left behind. How do we currently compare to probably the two closest clubs to us? That would be Gaston Country Club and Palisades. This might be hard to read in the back, so I'll try to go through it. So let's start with full members. Our dues currently are $525. Gaston, which is a combination of dues and monthly capital fee, combined is $645. So we're $525, Gaston $645, Palisades $540. On the sports, and that's an apples to apples to apples. When we get to the other categories, it does get a little tricky. Our sports, which, as you know, has limited golf and everything else, is $325. Gaston is actually $500 and does not include golf. And Palisades is only $195, but it's no golf, no dining, or events. So it's basically a tennis, pool, and fitness membership. And then social, ours is $225. Gaston, which excludes swim, fitness, and golf, our social get up to one round. They can play one round a month at full fees. Is actually $340, and Palisades is $280, and it's pretty much apples to apples except for the limited golf that we have. From an initiation fee perspective, for full, we're currently at $10,000. Gaston's $15, and Palisades is $10. We know, well, our intelligence tells us that Gaston is moving to $18,000 early next year, and Palisades is moving to $15,000, and we believe that to be 99% accurate. Our sports is currently $5,000. You can see $11,000 for Gaston, $1,500 for the very limited Palisades piece of that, and then social is 3, 2, and 2, although social is certainly compared to Gaston a much more enriched membership category. So that's where we stand. So, what do we believe are the key areas that we need to go after? The first step was to say, hey, are there some efficiencies that we could get so that we could obviously attack more of these problem areas by reducing expenses in certain areas? And John Sheedy did a lot of work in identifying where we could streamline staffing to get better usage and reduce payroll by cross-training and staggered staffing. I'll talk more about that in a second. We feel we need to pay market wages to attract and retain staff. And for anyone in sort of the hospitality business now, or so many different businesses, understand how difficult it is to even find people and then to retain them. So clearly a competitive wage is very important. Our staff additions total about 10 to 12. The reason the numbers aren't, the cost of that isn't bigger is because of some of the savings that John was able to identify from the first bullet point. But where specifically are we focusing or want to focus? First is to right size the agronomy staff. And on the next, actually, I'll go to the next slide right now and then come back. We, in 23, are spending from an operating standpoint about $1,208,000 on agronomy/golf expenses. This is payroll and other, chemicals, fertilizer, all expenses. Our belief was, and the reason we had that belief, I think, was threefold. One was we cut way back on this back in 16, 17, and 18, and haven't added to the extent that one might expect. Secondly, John's experience at other clubs, he pointed out quickly that, wow, we, on the agronomy side, seem to be well under budget compared to others. And third, our CFO, our contract CFO, works for 5 other clubs, and so we're able to get, without identifying the specific club, some good competitive data. And sort of heard the same thing. So we're able to get this exact data for 2 clubs that he believed were very comparable to us, size-wise, number of holes, 18, etc. And our $1,208,000, Club 1 in North Carolina, was just about $1,500,000. That's a 25% delta. It's a big number. And Club 2 was actually $1,552,000. So it definitely reinforced that belief. Quite frankly, our most important asset, we're well under investing in from a staffing and from a certainly equipment, and we didn't have fairway mowers for I don't know how many years. So it's, we believe, a critical area because we need to, the course has come back very nicely. We need to continue to improve and maintain it. So the additions there, the bar service and kitchen staff, what that should translate to is more staff to improve delivery time, improve quality, etc. Very consistent theme around, we love the chef, food is great, but wow, the inconsistency just really drives us crazy. Cleaning staff, maintenance staff, not very complicated. You have one person to clean this entire facility, seemed woefully short. Likewise for maintenance, given the age of the facility. Rackets court maintenance staff, maintaining a full-time position there to keep that facility the way it should be. Staff to deliver the desired golf product that I talked about. Not terribly expensive from a payroll addition standpoint to do those things, but I think would be extremely impactful to how everyone would perceive their golf experience here. And pool supervisor, pool servers. In addition to staffing, we clearly need to get the right, either purchase or lease the right equipment. That includes fairway mowers and other critical agronomy equipment. We were able to find some used fairway mowers, very used fairway mowers. We are ordering, it's about a year lead time. We've ordered fairway mowers for next year. But there's other equipment needed for the agronomy team that, quite frankly, I think most other clubs have. New fitness machines, the kitchen enhancements, and then renovating all bathrooms, which is a clear issue. All right, so the punchline everybody's been waiting for. what are the proposed fees? Now, let me reiterate, this is very much a choice. A no vote, well, I'm sorry, let me start on at the top there, and then I'll get to a no vote versus yes vote. As part of this proposal, our belief is annual range fees, and for those of you not familiar, there's an annual racket association fee. The range fees are $140 per person annually. The racket association is $70 per person annually that play tennis. We believe those fees should just be part of the dues. In other words, if you're a full member or a sports member paying significant dues, you should have access to the range. It shouldn't be an additional item. Likewise on the racket side. So the proposal is to eliminate annual range fees for full and sports members, and that's $140 per person per year. Eliminate annual racket association fees, $70 per person per year. On the initiation side, we're looking to move our full initiation from 10 to 13,000, sports from 5 to 8, social from 3 to 5. We believe these are still competitive to attract new members. We get a lot of feedback when people are touring, and wow, you're cheaper than others. We're looking for slow growth. In fact, our 24 budget assumes flat growth. In other words, we're only adding as many people as we think are going to leave. We think that's important until we get all this service right. We wouldn't want to bring in 20, 30, 40, 50 more members and not be able to handle that. So we think these proposed initiations would allow us to basically stay flat and cover from any attrition losses. So by member type, current dues are $525. If the no's pass, which means the end of the vote, the dues increase was not approved, dues will go up to 4.9%. Given the inflation rate, given what I talked about, if we even want to try to maintain what we're doing, it would be critical for that to happen. So a no vote means full will be going from 525 to 550. Excuse me. A yes vote would mean it would go up an additional $35 to 585. Now, some of you are already calculating probably, well, hold on. I pay 2 range fees, that's $280, 140 times 2. Some may pay 2 racket association fees, which is 2 times 70, $140. So I'm basically paying $420 annually now, once a year. It would go up $35, which is $420. So in that case, it would basically be a break even. Obviously, if you only have 1 racket fee, it would be an increase of $130, etc. So an important piece to consider is the elimination of those fees in addition to the increase. Likewise for sports, a no vote dues will go up $15 from $325 to $340, and with the yes vote to $370, with the same reduced impact from the annual range fees and the racket association fees. And then finally, social, no vote, it would go to $235, and with the yes vote up to $265. And I am on my final slide, and I'll open it up for questions. What we try to show here is what happens with a no vote versus a yes vote. If with a no vote, obviously we still need to increase our wages to our staff. I have a question mark on absorbing other inflation pricing. Don't forget, we'd have $50,000 to handle all other inflationary increase. We would not be really able to have the staffing that we want in any other area. Leaves critical agronomy equipment, it says no. That's, to be perfectly honest, it's kind of a mixed bag. We have ordered the fairway mowers, those are critical. There's other agronomy equipment that it could be a challenge. And then obviously with the yes vote, we'd be able to do all those things. Now, with the yes vote, quite honestly, comes a lot of, how do I want to call it? A lot of pressure on the board and certainly on our general manager and leadership team to obviously then deliver the results. We would have removed the legitimate excuse in almost all cases of, I don't have budget to do that, we don't have budget, etc., because we would. And the immediate impact should be felt around the golf product, around the service delivery consistency from a food and beverage standpoint, bathrooms, fitness center, pool furniture, a lot of different areas that there'd be, I think, immediate impact felt. So, in conclusion, I mean, this, you know, I'm trying to think of another situation where somebody gets to vote to pay more. And I couldn't come up with one. And it's tough, as a board member, quite honestly, I mean, I pay dues, to say, wow, you know, put a lot of work on this, and the end result is I'm going to pay more money. But it's important, and I think the whole board did a great job, because really it was a unanimous approach to pursue this, to kind of take off the member hat and put sort of a board or almost a management consulting hat on and say, hey, from a what makes sense for the club, comparing to the competition, comparing, we went through a long stretch, 16, 17, 18, 19, where we really didn't do anything on dues. So is this a bit of a catch-up to sort of the market? Yes. So, we have to put that hat on of what makes sense for the club. And the way I personally view it, which some of you might agree and others probably vehemently disagree, the analogy I've used in my mind is, I pay for a European vacation and it's $20,000. And I find out where I booked, it's going to be good. Not great, it's going to be good. But I find out there's a great option for another $1,500. Well, the reality is $1,500 is a lot of money, but I'm already paying $20. And so I want a great experience. We pay a lot of money currently for dues. We get a good experience. We'd like to take it to a great experience, and a yes vote would enable us to go after that. So with that, let me open it up. Yes.
What's the delta or the difference between the no vote and the yes vote from a financial perspective? And does that take into consideration the inclusion of the range? And with that number, have you discussed just doing it as an assessment?
Great question, and luckily I anticipated it. If we only do the 4.9% increase instead of the yes vote, our dues would drop $279,000. But we would say we would recover the $55,000 that the range we wouldn't be giving up. So the net effect was about $224,000. So in other words, a no vote will give us $224,000 less to spend on the things we want to do, predominantly from a payroll perspective. And I'm sorry, the last piece was,
And was that $200,000 delta, had it been considered to do it through an assessment versus a dues increase that will go on forever?
yes, I don't know if everybody could hear that without the mic, but it was, do we consider an assessment versus a dues increase? And yes, the answer is yes, that was considered. To your point, dues increase is permanent. Assessment is one time. But also on the operating side, obviously the additions to staff are permanent that need to be paid. We don't plan on keeping them for a year and then going backwards. So we try to sync up, hey, if there is an assessment at some point, it's going to be focused on a very specific handful of critical things that the club needs. The parking lot, the cart paths repaved, master plan ideas that come out of the golf master plan, et cetera, et cetera. So it was discussed. Belief was, hey, let's match up sort of ongoing expenses with ongoing revenues.
Which actually makes sense. Then it puts in another question. Is there a hybrid where we could have an assessment to handle capital issues and a smaller dues increase to handle operational?
That would be a possibility. Quite honestly, we considered sort of, hey, is this about an assessment? Is it about that? Is it potentially in combo? And where we settled was, hey, let's get the operating budget right, match up revenue expenses so we could still generate money for capital repair and replace needs. And then down the road, we took in some good lifetime money. We have capital to spend on some critical things here over the next year, and then we'll need to look at how do we fund our capital needs moving ahead. Thanks.
Hey everyone, I have a microphone, so I'm going to pass it around to everyone who has questions. So just pop your hand up and I'll hand the microphone.
So Brittany, why don't you just start handing the mic out?
Yeah, I just want to know, when you were looking at the three different groups, did you analyze each one independently? You went through the numbers quick and we're pretty far back, so you can't really see the numbers, but are
Sure.
the percentages the same with each group? Or did you look at supply and demand and said, well, how many fulls do you want? How many sports and how many socials do you want? And then supply and demand, let's figure out what the price each one should be versus a flat across the board. And then on top of that, you gave two good examples of other courses, but that's only two. And I'm sure you have to look at least 10. And my concern is, and I know they're not as good at comps, but what about Kramer? What about Rock Hill? Are we, where's that threshold where we're going to lose members and your numbers are going to go the other way because we hit a different number? And I know there's certain lifetime members in here that some people think, oh, they don't really care. Well, I'm a lifetime member and I do care. I wasn't in favor the last time we increased it. I'm on the fence here right now, and I think there's some board members that are also lifetime members, so this increase doesn't affect them, but it does affect us. It affects us because we want what's best for the club. And I think it's perceived that we don't care, but we do care even more because we're going to be here forever and we want the best. So we want the right fees, but I really want to take a close look at, my personal opinion is, how many fulls do you want? And are we getting there? And is the price range right? And I don't want to start losing people to Kramer or Fort Mill or Rock Hill. So did you look at that?
Yeah. Great question. We believed these were the two most comparable comps. Actually did not look at, you mentioned Kramer, and what was the other? Rock Hill. Did not, I'm trying to recall why, and I don't have a good answer.
You don't have the same.
Well, Kramer, I know, we felt was sort of an apples and oranges because of the dining. Rock Hill, same.
But we did do research on about 20 different clubs all across our region. Obviously, a lot of them are very different in amenities. But we did look at all the clubs in the area. Brittany ran an extensive report on all the things.
I was just mentioning, we did do an extensive research on all the clubs. There's probably 20 clubs in the area that we looked at, and Brittany got prices on the dues for all the different categories. Obviously, some of them vary based on their amenities and their services, but we just identified the few that were not only closer in proximity, but more likely to be corresponding with amenities.
But let me, there were several great questions within that. I'd like to address the others too. First, to help you on the increase here, the full is in the neighborhood of like 11-12% from the starting point. Social is a much bigger number, 225 to 265. So we did not do a blanket, hey, everybody goes up 10%. What's the reason for that? Two things. One is competitive. Social, quite frankly, at this club is an incredible deal compared to both John's experience at other clubs, our CFO's experience with his clubs, and the particular data points I put up. We have a cap of 250 social in the bylaws. 900 is the total membership cap. 400 full, 250, 250. We, a few months ago, hit the social cap of 250. I understand why we hit that, because it's quite a deal. So, this won't feel good for the social members. That's a almost 18% increase. It is, we believe, if someone, I think the decision could revolve around to be in a club or not in a club as opposed to a better deal at another club. We feel comfortable and thanks for your comment on lifetime. We have 9 board members, 3 are lifetime. I'm not a lifetime, but we have 3 lifetime. And quite frankly, the lifetime members on the board were probably the most concerned and careful around proceeding with the plan, and had the most, I think, questions for the very reason you mentioned, which was, hey, we don't want to do something that's going to cause widespread attrition or dissatisfaction. The belief is we could have some attrition risk on social. We have been very successful in bringing social members in to get back to the 250 cap. And the reality is, and I'm always afraid to say this because it's come off the wrong way, and I don't mean it that way. But if the sole reason a full sports member becomes dissatisfied with because of the additional dues, the reality is to join another club comes with a $15,000 or $8,000 price tag. If there were other reasons you're ready to leave the club, that's fine. But solely from a financial standpoint, it really wouldn't make sense to, because of several $100 increase, to then go pay $15,000 to join somewhere else. So we certainly weighed in attrition risk and feel comfortable with, we're certainly not leading the market around where will we be from a pricing standpoint.
Just have one question here. As we all sit here tonight, we're looking at either this yes or no vote. If we fast forward 12 months, are we looking at this all over again? So what are your thoughts? Where are we going to be a year from now?
Great question. And all I can give you right now would be my opinion on that. My opinion is this is a big right-sizing step to get us where if we had been raising dues sort of steadily over the years, in particular in that 17, 18, 19, 20 kind of time frame, we wouldn't be so far below sort of where we need to be and competitively. I certainly don't envision the need to right size again. What I can't speak to is what's inflation going to be over the next year. So I certainly couldn't stand here and say there will be no dues increase next year. What I can say is my belief would strongly be that I would not expect we would need to have a vote next year on a dues increase, meaning 5% or more. So that's the best way I can kind of answer that. Brendan, can you get a mic here?
First, John, Dan, great presentation. John, great job putting all this together. A couple questions I have are the $100,000 for personnel. Is that their total package or is it just a wage increase? I have several questions. That's the first question.
100,000 was strictly a 4% times wages, not including benefits, etc.
So benefits.
So-
So what would be the total increase? If you raise it $100,000, do you have any idea what the total would be?
Well, if benefit costs are going up 4%, I presume benefits are probably 30% of wages or something like that.
Right.
Probably another $12,000 bucks, I guess, just quickly off the top of my head. But
Okay.
yeah, it is true. That's simply a calculation of what's our current wages times 4%.
And then, because like I said, I have several questions, I'll do one at a time. So on the increase, with a no vote, it's a 4.9% increase.
Right.
Does that mean like our school board does, the board can do 4.9% every year if they so desire? Which would be compounded?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would suggest that if it's a no vote and we go to 550, that I certainly would expect either a revote next year on a number above that, or at a minimum a 5% increase, which would make that 550, 575, or 580.
So you're gonna get that 2 years anyway, really?
Yeah, now, obviously, we're interested in trying to improve
Right.
the identified issues as quickly as we can. But, and again, things could change, but I mean, that I think would be a likely scenario.
So can you go back to the screen of what this pays for?
That one?
No, we showed the why. The last one. No, the last
Oh,
one.
the
please.
yes and no's?
Yeah.
There we go.
Okay, so in your presentation, under the infrastructure section, you're addressing agronomy equipment and new gym equipment. But also in your presentation, you talked about kitchen equipment, pickleball courts, and I think I just saw a thing on the newsletter with pickleball courts are being addressed already.
Right.
And then, so you had pickleball court, you had the kitchen equipment,
Pickleball.
and pickleball, and you had bathrooms.
Right.
You renovating.
Yes.
So, but I don't see that under infrastructure.
Yeah,
So would
Well,
that
we-
be addressed as well?
Yeah, what we try to be fair on here is not say a no vote, nothing will get done. Okay,
Right.
so the pickleball resurfacing is happening.
Right, you already paid
The
the
pool, the pool bathroom is about to begin, that will happen. Some critical kitchen equipment is happening. So I didn't want to list that and say, hey, if you vote no, none of that's happening.
Right.
So those will still happen. And what we felt was most at risk were some of the key agronomy besides the fairway mower and certainly the gym equipment. Just from having the ability to pay for it.
Because, my thought is, from the gentleman in the back, had the same thought that I've got, in that, because you started out with the separating operating from capital, which I like seeing that, by the way. I thought that was excellent.
Good.
But taking that all the way through, and you're talking about a hybrid of different things, would you still want to look at both as the operating part would be the dues increase? Did y'all also discuss a potential to do all the things that members talked about? And what would that number look like? What would that capital expense be like? And pay for, like you said, you can't think of a good thing like Pennies for Progress in South End, York County. It's done great things for our county. And it's paid for with agreements. And the voters vote on it. Did y'all look at something like that where you have a dues increase? I know nobody likes the increases. I get it. But if you want to see a great club like you're recommending, have you looked at what it would be to do an increase, but also more like an assessment or increase, whatever the case may be, to do, which would be a short-term cost of money, and then once that's done, improvements are done.
Yeah.
Did y'all discuss what it would look like to do all the things that you talked about earlier under the capital improvement?
Yeah. The two things. One is thanks for the comment on the operating capital, and where it does get sort of connected is we are dependent upon operating budget to generate capital funds as one of those sources. And yes, we did. Now the reality is we're hoping to get a yes vote on the dues increase. If we combine that with a big capital assessment at the same time, that could be very problematic in getting approval. We did raise significant money from the lifetime sale, so that was a big capital infusion that we needed. It's enabling us to do a lot of the things we just mentioned around the pickleball, the kitchen, and a whole lot in 24. So we decided let's attack this. It's a very valid point. I mean, some might say, well, to be truly great, we need a better parking lot and better cart paths. That may be true. Maybe that would get us from great to exceptional, hopefully. But we started taking it in pieces. I'm going to go to whoever Brittany gets the mic to.
Good evening.
Is it on?
You've done a great presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
My question is, how do we make money? We're talking about spending it. We're talking about renovations. Two things that come to mind. I live on a golf course, and I'm retired. You know what? And I watch people out on the golf course. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, there's nobody out there. Exceptions, yes. But very often, today is an example, nobody was on the golf course. That's all revenue missed somewhere. Number two, we have friends that are going to have some wedding plans, and they come here, and it's difficult to deal with the staff here in terms of the cost of those things. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we've had 2 weddings this summer. Maybe there's more. John, I don't know. But don't those things generate revenue?
Yeah, great question. On the golf revenues.
And one thing further, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It seems that I've heard that the room is too small. I mean, you don't have a 98-person wedding anymore. Or at least you wish you could. Anyway, I'll leave that with you.
First, on the golf comment, absolutely true. I mean, one of our revenue drivers is golf revenue. And I think it's certainly we need to continue to focus on what could be done to generate more play from our current members. Are there more activities or programs that could increase that would drive cart revenue? And then likewise, as far as guests or outings or those things. Another key source of revenue, it's going to violate your third point, but is sort of this new area with sort of the ability to separate and be able to still run a club for members, is an opportunity that we honestly, under being conservative, we've not built into the 24 budget a big increase in that. We've talked about it, believe that's an opportunity and needs to be an area of focus. I don't know what to say about the area, the space. I've heard that we could have plans down the road to do some things, right, to make this a bit bigger. But those are two revenue opportunities that would certainly the second would have no impact to members, right, if we do it the right way, from a capacity of parking and all those things outside events. And certainly golf, we want to continue to come up with ideas, how can we drive more golf revenue? Brittany's.
So on the slide that you had the revenue additions on, what were the assumptions that were built in? Like, I'm assuming you figured in an average month per spend per membership. And does it align with our minimums? I think our minimums are way too low, honestly. And I think if you look at it, that equates about $75 per month per household. We wouldn't be able to survive if everybody just came in and met their minimum every month. So how are we doing in that regards of the average per spend per household per month? Does that get us to our goals? Or if we increase those minimums, would that get us closer to that? And also taking out to-go food, because I've seen, you can tell when it gets close to minimum time, people come up and order to-go food. That not only takes away from alcohol revenue, but also our staff tips as well. And I agree that it's been an increase in the restaurant experience here, but lately it's been pretty dead. So I think if we were able to get people into the club, eating in the club, experiencing the club, we'd even increase revenue even more.
Yeah, another driver of revenue. We've actually loaded in a big increase based on in food and beverage revenue and corresponding profitability after deducting cost of goods sold and the additional staffing needed to service that. But we've had in July, August, I mean, we've beaten budget. You know, we were kind of on budget until then, and we've beaten budget by really large, over 20% kind of numbers. So we did load that into the 24 budget, a big increase from that. Certainly, always looking for ideas on what could drive that further. Yeah.
My question is just about timing. We're getting ready in the next few days to meet the candidates for next year. Was there a reason that we wanted to do this vote before the new candidates got elected?
Strictly from short answer, no. I mean, the timing of this is just due to the normal budget timing. We have to have a budget locked in certainly by end of October, mid-November. From a dues standpoint, we need to know that number in mid-November so that for the prepaid folks, the prepay, that we know what that number is. So, and then the election of candidates always happens sort of on that cycle. So it really was coincidental that those both were this week. Thanks. Yeah.
So I think your increases are reasonable. We're going to vote for it, so you got it, no problem. My issue is, and we all know that it's going to go up 4.9% every year for the foreseeable future. Okay, let's just go there. And everybody in this room can afford the whatever interest, and that nobody's, I don't think, going to lose much. My question is, are we going to do this and assessments? First of all. So that's one thing. Second of all, I gotta believe, and I don't pay her bills, she does. I golf once or twice a month, I'm a sportsman. But my $1,800 a month in scotch, okay? You gotta be making money on that, guys.
I sure hope so.
And where does that money go? Okay? So I didn't see that in the money, in the figures here. And if you're not making money on that, John's got a problem.
There was a lot there, so let me try to go through that. If we stay in an inflationary environment like this for the next few years, it's safe to say that increases will need to be somewhere in that range to keep up. My earlier comment was more, no, I don't suspect that there needs to be sort of a huge jump to right size. We believe this gets us to where we need to be. The assessment, there are no plans in the works, no development of an assessment. We do have some critical capital needs over the next few years that we're going to have to deal with beyond what we generate from operations, that 500,000 or whatever. I mentioned a few of them, cart paths. We're going to have a master plan on the golf course, and we'd love to present some options to members and say, do you want to do these things? If so, here's what they would cost. So I can't speak to, there is not a pending assessment that, hey, get the yes vote, and in 6 months we're going to be back saying, okay, now we're going to talk about assessment. That work would have started. Do I believe there may need to be an assessment down the road? Could be. Most clubs, that is their main avenue. You remember those sources of funding. We've kind of gone to the max on the bank financing. Now, if our financials continue to improve, that could open up. And we now have 29 lifetime members. So we sort of tap that out, I think, as far as we want to go for not mortgaging the future beyond that. So it remains to be seen, but there is not currently a assessment plan ready to hit.
I just want to give a little sidebar here about the golf course. COVID's over. Employers are asking their employees to come back to work. So therefore, you're not going to have the person working from home going out and playing 9 holes at 3 in the afternoon. It's not going to happen. Only the retired people out there. And I will tell you, if you want a prime tee time, you're up at 6:30 in the morning, and that tee sheet is full by 1:30 for 1:30 tee times. And I think members forget that when COVID was here, you couldn't get a tee time. And now offices are asking people to come back to work so they can't sneak out and play 18 holes of golf. So that's just my side of why the golf course is kind of empty at 2:30 in the afternoon. Thank you.
Yeah.
I love the presentation, by the way. Good job.
Thank you.
Just a point of clarification on
Sure.
my bill on the full membership is $525.
Right.
And then I have another line item that's $30 a month. That was not discussed, and so we're talking about net when you start removing the range, but really that 525 is not a real monthly number. Is that correct? Or am I the only one that's getting that line?
That is your personal third now. The 525 are the dues. There's a $30 service charge item, which actually coincidentally there's a new Q&A frequently asked questions thing that we're going to be sending out here, and one of the first ones is around that very question as to what the heck is that $30 service charge. That basically, if you, we tend to need to pay a higher hourly wage for wait staff, et cetera, because historically, until we recently started the tipping, if they worked somewhere else, they'd have a lower hourly wage, but then the tips would more than make up for that. So that really, in essence, goes to fund that hourly wage of our wait staff, et cetera. So that is a separate fee. We're not eliminating all separate fees. Hopefully the range fee and the associate fee, but it's a very valid point that everybody does pay that. Yeah, I mean,
Excuse it to it's really not 525. It's 525 plus 30 is what we're paying a month. That's our monthly due That's current dues, should be 525 plus 30.
Yeah, it would, yeah, I mean, more precisely, potentially should have said 525 plus 30 service charge. I mean, those aren't dues, those are a service charge. You still pay it, but I mean, technically, they're not dues.
Technically, rate bonds are not dues, but it's, you touched on that. So I'm saying, if we're going to do a complete picture here, I think that's the complete cost of being there.
If you, whenever you come in to dine, you don't pay gratuity. You're not forced to pay gratuity when you come in to dine. You're not forced to pay gratuity.
It's on the bottom, it says gratuity.
When you're not forced to leave any gratuity. What your $30 service charge does is that is like Dan said, is it's used to combat the wages for the service staff. You know, it's if you go out to eat somewhere and you choose to leave 30% as opposed to 20%. In essence, the $30 that's on your monthly bill goes to make it to where the staff can be paid $13 an hour. You have an option of leaving an extra $5, which is leaving them 30% versus 20.
Initially, that was saying that was a tip going when that first came about. Now it's simply not a tip, it's to raise the hourly rate so they can get to a certain level. I would rather raise it and be included to say that, and then say, oh, by the way, if your staff's doing well, didn't tip them. I mean, I tip anyone. If they're doing well, I mean, that's, but anyway, I just thought that was a fee that should have been included.
But it is, because it's a food and beverage related item, because it said if you come in and dine and they add a 20% fee on your ticket, that would be that $30. But everybody pays the $30. Now we can, I mean, and quite honestly, if it was up to me, I would take the $30 off or the $60 for a family off of everybody's, and then every time you come in to dine, you would be billed 20% on top of what you purchased. Currently, you're not billed 20%. It's the $30.
I'm just saying that is a $30 that did not show up with 525 comparing other clubs. So when you're pairing and what?
But the other clubs charge 20%. They don't do the third service charge.
You sure on that?
Yes.
Then that should be on the other illustration.
It's not relatable to dues. It's all the compensation for food and beverage staff.
Same way with rate laws.
And it's not at all dues. It's not dues.
I think you're slicing the bologna a little too thin here.
No, the $30 service charge is
Instead of saying current dues, what you're saying, monthly payments. I mean, bottom line, how much do people put out each month? Whether it's going to tip, whether it's going to.
well, then we should include what you pay in meals.
No, because
It's the same. The $30 is part of your meal.
The 30 doesn't vary. And if I don't eat, yeah.
And if you don't eat, you still pay the $30.
Just make you put that on.
Plus your unspent minimum.
So is the $30 not good to like talk
So if we paid staff $3 an hour plus 20%, that's where the $30 comes from.
So $30 not spread around the entire club.
It's food and beverage staff.
Hey guys, let's leave that question towards the end if you want to talk more about it, but we have some more questions, so we kind of want to keep it rolling.
I have a comment and a question. First, my comment is, as far as dining goes, I do miss having the best view, which is back here, instead of formal dining, having a view of the driveway and the driving range. That is disappointing to me, as far as the dining goes. I like the meals, but I think we're missing the best views back here. We're just not utilizing them very well. But my question is, you had mentioned that we were assuming no additional membership income, that was going to be flat. You weren't trying for that. And I'm just wondering why. If you were saying we want to do slow and we want to make it sure it's right before we get more new members, I mean, that's what you said. but wouldn't the addition of new members, especially with their initiation fee, bring in a great deal of money that could get us there faster?
Yeah,
So,
great question. Let me clarify what I said to make sure it was clear. We're assuming no membership growth. We're assuming 36 new members. We're assuming 36 members are leaving. So the initiation fees from those 36 members is very important. In fact, it's $234,000. 36 are spread across the various categories. So the reason for that was really twofold. One is try to be conservative. We don't want to assume, hey, we're going to get 50 new members or 60, and then fall short of that and potentially make some decisions assuming that money's coming when it isn't. But your point's very valid. We're certainly not, we're certainly in the business of attracting new members. It's not sort of a critical objective that we had over the past several years where we needed to get that membership growth. But 36 is still a big number. So sorry if I didn't say that the right way when I said no growth. What was that question?
I'm bringing you the microphone.
So the question is, so a no vote is still an increase
Right.
for every single category.
Right.
So in a yes vote, so how are you saying the votes are? So how many members do you want to have for golf, for sports, for social? Do you have like a number on that? And where are we at that number? And how are we going about like having a no vote still do an increase?
When you say how many members, you're saying how many members we put?
Members, so how is the vote? Is a golf membership equal to one vote and sports one vote?
Oh, I'm sorry. This would follow the bylaw weighting, which I believe full counts as 2.5, sports counts as 1.5. Thank you, John. And social counts as a weight of 1, right? So full votes count as times 2.5, sports times 1.5, social times 1. So we need to weight the votes across that group and exceed the threshold needed to pass.
Okay, and where are we on the full membership? Like, do we have how many full memberships? Sports, how many?
We have 250 social. We have 320-ish full and sports. John.
180.
So like 320-ish full, 180 sports, 250 social, and then there's some old categories that aren't used anymore, kind of thing.
Okay, I was confused on a no vote and a yes vote. So there's still an increase no matter what you vote.
Well, thanks. Let me clarify. The no vote is the end result of the vote. So a person could vote no, and the overall motion carried, and they're going to get an increase. So you can't opt out of the increase by voting no. It's the majority rule. So this was saying if the weighted of all the votes is a no, then the board would increase its, the amount it's allowed to increase. If it's a yes, then the motion would pass.
Three questions. First of all, why aren't we upping the membership to 15,000? What's with 13,000? Why wouldn't we be charging the same thing as everybody else? No answer, and that would bring in additional money. Secondly, I am not certain and proven by what the club is bringing in financially, I don't think the golf is as important as social at this point in time. I think we are making more money from social, I know, and we have a waiting list for social. We do not have a waiting list for full members. So I'm just saying we might want to rethink that, because obviously social is attracting a lot of people. More than full. Yeah, more than full. So you might want to rethink some priorities along here, because, and as somebody else said, people are working now. We don't have as many full golfers because they're going back to work, but they're coming by to drink afterwards. So I think the kitchen should be a priority too, and I think that will help with servicing everything else that's going on around here. That's it.
That's right.
First of all, let me thank the board, and Dan, you guys have the patience of Job. You've done a wonderful job. And let me try and just say that Dan has said 14 times, we're forced to play catch up if we want to stay competitive and viable. So for us to sit here and question every little nitpick detail, I think it borders on destructive. Let's just vote yes and get on with living.
Can we end there?
All right. All right.
Yeah, without beating a dead horse, Dan, great presentation. I'm all for it. I've been here 40 years with my wife. We have never not voted for the recommendation of the board, and I don't see an exception this time, so thank you. My question is back to the tips for John Sheedy. I don't know of any country club that I've been a member of, we've been a member of 3, that you ever were handed a ticket to sign or gratuity. That is uncountry club-like. We need to eliminate that process. Build the tip into the ticket. Sign it. Don't request a tip at the turn shack. No tipping should be allowed on club property. It should be built into the service. And I feel very strongly about that. I've never been to a country club ever where I got a ticket and got a gratuity request on it. And I have a follow-up. John, can you answer that, John? Okay.
So I don't know if any of you know, but we used to not be a tipping club. We changed that right after COVID. You know, the service industry was struggling tremendously, and we needed staff. So what better way to entice them than to add a tipping line? So hopefully that answers the question. It is optional. You do not have to tip. I know it feels like an obligation because it's on there, but it is optional.
I wasn't clear. I've never been to a country club where I was requested to pay a tip on a receipt. It's not country club like. We need to build it into the hot dog or the beer or whatever it is, build it into their wages, and don't request a tip when you get a soft drink. Pay them well, don't request a tip, build it into my ticket. When I sign my ticket in there, don't stick it in front of me saying you need $35 more for a gratuity on top. It's just not country club like. One follow-up, John. Are we going to get an itemized budget proposal for 24 before we vote? It's always interesting to see how the budget, what's appropriated for different categories. agronomy, what's built into the capital plan for 24, different capital, country club, kitchen, that should be available. Is that gonna be published so we can see it?
All of the financials and
All of the financials and all of the budgets are always accessible to the membership anytime they ever want to come and see them in my office. We don't typically plaster the budgets or the financials on an email or a website, but they're always accessible. You can always come see it. And the item and the 24 budget, the itemized 24 budget is accessible to you if you want to see it. It will be very soon.
And I'm happy. I'm happy if anyone wants to walk through. I'm happy to sit down and sort of give a quick, or not quick, give an overview of what is in, what's not in, etc. Yeah. Just, and anyone else interested, just get a hold of me. I'd be happy to go through that. And obviously that budget assumes a yes vote. We have a separate, what is it if it's a no vote? All right. Thanks for sticking all the way through. Thank you.